going on, everybody? It's Thomas, and I'm here with Frank.
Hey, hey.
Welcome to Challenge Accepted Reacts. We're talking about The Mandalorian Chapter 24, The Return, the long-awaited finale. What did you think, Frank?
I really enjoyed it. There are definitely things that we'll be addressing, but I really enjoyed it. I think it was a fitting end to this season. I think that there's some things we're going to be talking about, though.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, it was a great finale. It was so action-packed, so many cool moments in this and fight scenes, and it was like Mando meets John Wick at some of the parts, and I'm here for it.
For sure. Yeah, this was probably the most action-packed episode yet, really. And I like how we had like set battle scenes and stuff like that too. So that was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
The fluidity was interesting, yeah, of the battle scenes too. Because there was times where I was like, "Why is Mando going away then coming back to fight?" But we'll kind of explain that as we go.
Well, let's break this episode down, and then we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of it all.
All right, here we go. I'm actually got my notes for this breakdown. The last breakdown that I didn't have the notes for, and luckily didn't totally bomb. But
yeah, you went
it was
off
under
the
2
cuff on
minutes.
it.
I know that much.
Yeah, shout out to John too. I mean, thanks for jumping in for me, and yeah, that was an awesome episode. So if you guys haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to it.
Yeah, that was a fun one. All right, here we go. Starting up. So we're the Mandalorian, the return. We see the Mandalorians are trying to escape this Imperial base they found on Mandalore. Meanwhile, Din is captured but fights his way through the guards, and Grogu ends up saving him. He does the "I'm going to need you to be brave" speech, which always gets to me. Moff Gideon wants to take out Mando himself. Good luck, buddy. We're seeing R5 stepping up. I like how he's doing a little R2-D2 work now. That's cool. R5
Yeah, absolutely.
Axe Woes is telling everyone to head to the surface. He's going to, try to hold off all the ships, which I, at this point, thought Axe Woes is going to turn off everybody, so I thought he was going to take that ship and run, but he didn't.
Yeah, me too.
The ship visuals are very cool. All the visuals in this episode are a notch above. Ship visuals, the shielding visuals, everything's super cool in this.
Mm-hmm.
We see that Mando is rocking one of the jetpacks from the fake Mandalorians, we'll call them.
Yeah.
He doesn't lose it towards the end of the episode, so I assume he's going to have that for the next season. Mouse droids have a purpose. We learn that. And we find out that the clones are actually Moff Gideon clones. The Mandalorians, we find out the ones that have been surviving on the planet actually grew plants on Mandalore, which means there's a bright future for the planet itself. Everybody starts fighting. They're fighting with the mean Mandalorians, and the good Mandalorians are all fighting together. Moff Gideon puts on his war suit, and he's fighting Bo-Katan at one point. Then he's fighting Din Djarin at another point. Grogu's taking on the Red Guards. Everybody's fighting each other, and at the end, we see that Grogu saves the day by shielding them from a fire, while the ship from above lands and destroys the base, and Moff Gideon seems to be destroyed. This is a really good ending for, let's see, it looks like there's going to be adventures again with just Grogu and Mando out in the galaxy together. Finally, time.
Nice. Nicely done. Yeah, it's interesting how it all wraps up at the end. And you touch on so many great points there, but right at the beginning, we see them retreating, pretty cool action. That fight scene between Din and those two guards who captured him in the hallway was so badass. Like, it already starts off the episode with so much action, and just, man, he's just still that dude. He is the Mandalorian, if you will, and that just sets it up real nice for the whole episode.
A lot of his fight scenes brings me back to the idea that this is a Western, and we see him bust with the pistols a lot in a very Western way.
Yeah.
And there's times where, like, we're seeing, you can imagine if this was an Old West area, these are a couple of the rival gangs that are bringing in our hero, and he fights them off. And then eventually his old companion comes in and knocks the guy out. Like, this is very much a Western the way to do this. And later on when we see him going through the shields, which was so freaking cool and very much episode 1.
Yeah.
But Din Djarin style. And we see him, like, wielding the two pistols. I was just like, God damn, this dude's awesome. And I love how they make this. And it makes me want to see a Pedro Pascal Western. Like, give me that already. That would be so
absolutely
freaking cool.
Yeah, we're getting so much Pedro. I'm never disappointed. Like, he always just kills it.
And better yet, like, if you guys watch a lot of him at the conventions and stuff like that, like, he tears up when people compliment him. He's like such a genuine person, and in a world where, like, as much as I love Giancarlo Esposito, he's an amazing Moff Gideon, he's such a good villain, I feel like he's so professional that sometimes when I see him do interviews or whatever, he's selling the product. But when I'm seeing Pedro Pascal do interviews or whatever, he's just like, I'm geeking out too, guys. This is awesome, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yes, that's what I'm here for.
Absolutely. Yeah. He just seems like a normal guy who's just stoked to be a part of the
You
world,
gotta
which
look
is
up
amazing.
John Favreau says his favorite show the last year was The Last of Us. If you look over at Pedro Pascal's reaction to it, he's so giddy. It's just like, oh, it's the
Yeah.
best thing for him.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. We got to find that and post that to Twitter
Yeah, I
or
will.
something.
I will. Yeah.
But yeah, that hallway fight scene is incredible. Again, I said John Wick, and I mean it. Like, he starts off with no weapons, and then by the end of all those shields, right, he goes down. He's fighting those first guys, the knife. Then it goes to the baton with the shield. Then it was shield and pistol. Then slides, and like just the way he keeps taking out the guys as he's going down the hallway and getting more and more weapons, and even misses that weapon that one time where he shoots the guy and he falls into the side.
I liked that little touch. That was cool. He's like, oh shit, I want to
Yep.
that knife.
Oh, I love that too. That was great because it was like he said, like, I don't have any weapons. This is gonna get messy, and boy does it get messy. But he just keeps going on and taking guys out. It was so badass. I love that scene. We also get to see R5 stepping up there as well and helping him out, and then also Mouse Droid's kind of messing with him at the same time.
Do you think R5 is going to be? I think he is. I think he's going to now be a part of the team going forward.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's great because we get a little tidbit of him in A New Hope where we're first introduced, and now it's kind of come full circle, and he's a part of the Mando team. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but, is semi being contracted out by the New Republic.
Yeah, that is cool. One thing I really like about R5 too, joining the team, is that means that Grogu's going to step up, because R5's position in the team is kind of like comic relief a little bit, doing the side stuff might be useful here and there, which is what Grogu's been. Grogu's been the comic relief. When things are getting scary, he like closes the dome over himself, and that's always fun.
Right. Yeah.
But I think Grogu's now fitting into what Bo-Katan was this season as the duo, where we might see moments where they're fighting. We saw it here with Grogu, where Grogu's the one actually fighting side by side with Din Djarin, with Mando, and is the difference in the win. So
I think that's a great thing to point out, because you're right. We also get to see that badass thing where it was really interesting, right? Like, he's like, okay, Grogu, it's time to be brave. And I feel like Grogu has been brave a lot. There's been those times where he's kind of closed himself in the metal bassinet thing. But he has shown time and time again that he actually does step up when he needs to. And then we see it even more in one of the coolest scenes where they're kind of tag teaming the Praetorian Guards. And
the name, by the way.
yeah, there you go. But he's using the Force, and Din's getting in his kicks and his shots. Oh my God, what a cool fight scene!
Duo. Yeah,
yeah.
We've seen a lot of that with Bo-Katan this season, where Bo-Katan and Mando have worked really well together, and like they have this good rhythm. And now this episode we saw how when Grogu does step up, he has that rhythm with him as well. And I think that's what that speech was all about, because Grogu has always been at a clutch moment he'll step up,
Right.
But Din needed him to or I guess Jarden. We learned that Din's not necessarily the first name.
Jarden, it's like Japanese, where like the family name is first, and then your name is like the last.
I like it because now Grogu, Din Grogu, that sounds dope.
Is epic. Oh, so cool. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, and it hit me right in the heart too.
Yeah.
Got me in the feels.
I was like, oh, this family.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that that be brave thing was basically saying, I need you to be the aggressor this time. You need to actually be on the attack like I am. And we saw Grogu do that. He got trapped into that room with them, and I mean, he was bouncing around again. That jump thing we've talked about in the past. I would have liked for him to grab one of the weapons and start fighting. I don't know. But he was very proactive in comparison to previous Grogu fight scenes.
So true. Yeah, it didn't bother me so much in this episode. Anytime he like jumps into somebody's arms, to me, it looks really, I don't know. I don't want to say fake, but it just doesn't look as awesome as everything else. And it was okay because he was kind of jumping around and kind of dodging the things, and that seemed okay. But it also, to me, the way he uses the Force is very much like a light side Force user, right? So he is like moving people around, he's pushing people, and then at the end, we see like what he did in season 1, he shields the fire, and that shielding, that barrier, to me is all kind of light side Force wielding. And so I like that, because it's kind of showing like he's still this good, pure soul in a sense. and he just wants to like be with his dad and protect his dad, and then like likewise, and so they have this like beautiful loving father-son relationship.
That's a great shout out because we saw in season 1 Grogu actually choke somebody, which is purely a Sith move.
That's right.
Yeah, but his
forgot about
people
that.
generally don't go dark at all. I mean, I don't think they even can. Like, I mean, they are that much on the light side. We
Right.
see like the worst of it goes gray. So we know he's going to probably go fully light. But it is a concern of ours, and he's with Mandalorians, which are not always the good guys. And so that is a concern. But the way he's fighting, it's very much airbenders from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Right.
Where they're evasion first, they will make sure to put you off kilter before they attack you. And I like that that's going to be his fighting style. We see it in this one when he has... Because I was kind of... While I was watching it, I expected, hey, we've seen him choke somebody before. If you wanted to really get rid of Moff Gideon, would kind of be a cool scene if you just choked him and throw him over the edge. But it would have been dark side for sure.
Yeah, that would have been so dark, and we kind of got like a faux Darth Vader, if you will, in this episode, right? So Moff Gideon, he's wearing the Beskar armor. The way they even modulate his voice in the helmet was like, ooh, okay, they're trying to give us Kylo Ren, Darth Vader vibes here, which was awesome. I loved it. He even had like almost a powered up suit. Which
I was going to shout that out. You could hear the like servo motors going. So it was an actual exoskeleton helping him fight. That's the only way he's standing toe to toe with Pedro Pascal. Or by the way, shout out to Brendan Wayne, who's actually in the suit. We keep doing that.
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal's the voice for the most part. It's Brendan Wayne who's actually going blow to blow with whoever was in actually Giancarlo Esposito's suit.
Right. I know the way he can like roll around with the jetpack and the helmet and everything on and grab things and shoot. I'm like, we know he has like a 1-inch slit for his eyes. So it's like, how is this dude doing all this stuff? He's practically doing it blind. And it's so good. It looks like, makes Mando look just like one of the best warriors ever in this galaxy. So man, it's so cool. I loved it.
There are so many good things to talk about in this episode. I mean, let's go. I want to talk about the fact that Mandalore has hope now. We know that first off, there's the Mythosaur, and that Grogu has a little chat with him through the Force. We know that much.
Right.
But
I want to almost save the Mythosaur for the end, though.
I wish they brought the Mythosaur out myself. I was hoping for it to be this, but it wasn't this.
It just seems like such... Well, should we just get into it now?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
It just seems like such a waste, and I'm sorry. Like, I know people can probably argue, like, no, it didn't need to be this big thing. And for sure, it's cool that the symbol and the creature for the Mandalorian culture is still alive. But to bring it up in episode 2 and to make it felt like such an impactful moment, and then to kind of just show us going through the waters after all the Mandalorians are there, and then you just kind of get a peek at it, seems a little bit like a waste to me.
Well, the two things I keep in mind, because I assumed the Mythosaur was coming.
Right.
The two things I keep in mind is, first off, now we know we have a Thrawn movie coming. So if you're going to whoop out something big from the Mandalorians, it's then. Secondly,
Good point.
season 4 was written with season 3. So if you guys watch Rebels, season 3 and 4 were written together, obviously, because season 3 and 4 were part 1 and part 2, essentially. I think that's what this is. I think the Mythosaur is coming back in season 2 or season 4, but I also feel like season 4 is going to be far less this grand arcing story like we got in this one. This one was a step out from what Mandalorian normally is.
Right.
But I think we could see that Mythosaur show up when Thrawn and his forces fully attack, because by then Ahsoka will introduce Thrawn and the new heir to the Empire.
Yeah. I'm just like, dang it. I just wanted to see that thing pop up out of the water and do something.
Yeah.
And talk about like the rise of Mandalore. Like, how crazy would it have been if the Mythosaur had popped up? I know we can't like review things based on like what didn't happen, but I can't help but think if that Mythosaur popped up and just kind of helped them at some pivotal moment, it would have been like, wow, this is truly Mandalore rising. This is truly like the symbol that all of these Mandalorians like get to look at and be like, wow, we're here, we're taking back over. Yeah. Right. So some part of me was just like, really? But it was cool to at least get the nod back to, hey, it's still there.
That's the tweet I threw out on my personal account, was the fact that the things I didn't care for in this episode were all things that I expected, maybe unfairly. And they lead to things which, of course, is a grand arcing story, so it can't just necessarily be in the season. But I think, especially for as long as we've been reviewing shows and movies, both on this podcast and others, we kind of know the cadence of how they reveal things or how things go, and we have so much source material for something like this. Just like with MCU, this reminds me back to something like Ant-Man, where I'm like, okay, I expect to see Reed Richards at some point, through here.
Right.
I think there's got to be. I think we have to kind of keep in mind when we're reviewing something like, okay, what did I expect? Now, if I take out what I expected, was this good? And that's what I'm actively doing in this episode, because I expected so much from this episode. If I take out what I expected and enjoyed for what I got, it was really good. But there was no Mythosaur. There was no Thrawn showing up at the last moment to kill Gideon like I wanted to happen.
Right.
I wanted the clones to not be Moff Gideon clones, because I think that's stupid that he would want to clone himself. He's an old man. Why would you not try it? I was hoping to see Boba Fett's in there, and there wasn't.
Oh, that would have been interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I didn't mind the Moff Gideon clones as much, because I was like, okay, cool. Like, he wants to make the best version of himself. He's selfish like that. I mean, he wants the power for himself. So I was okay, that's cool. Like, I got that. But yeah, these freaking reviewers online, man. They just threw me off. Again, all I was thinking about was last episode where the title was Spies, right? Yeah. And we knew Elia Kane was a spy from Moff Gideon. Like, I think we predicted that. But I was like, Axe Wolf's definitely a spy. The armor is definitely a spy. And then, boom, this episode comes in and they're all good. They're all helping all of Mandalore. I'm like, wait, what? None of them is bad? So those guys fully inceptioned me and put it in my mind that they were bad, and they were not.
Yeah, I know.
I got thrown off there.
One of the YouTube channels I've watched since the very beginning, back when he used to do just Arrowverse videos, is Charlie from Emergency Awesome. And if you guys are listening to us and you for some reason aren't following him, please do. I proudly give a shout out to such a cool creator. I've actually emailed him saying, like, you're one of my inspirations, dude. Thank you. And he's totally messaged me back with such nice, kind words.
Wow,
very cool guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, he's the one that really looks into it and makes me my mind think differently. Like I'll watch something, and then I'll see Charlie's video, and I'm like, I didn't even think of that. Now that's part of the problem, right? Now I'm like, yes, we're totally gonna see this now. And it's like, well, that was just one guy's opinion. That was really cool.
Yes.
But
and one guy's prediction too. Not you know what I mean? Like, it's just, hey, this could happen, right? We could say that all the time, but you're right. Like, I almost feel like there is a little bit of responsibility if we throw that out there and it doesn't happen, and then people are bummed. Like, that, that could mess you up. That could mess
we
other
have to
people
be clear, and I know I've made that mistake myself and have heard from it, is you have to be clear, like, this is my prediction, this might happen. And I've gotten really good about, personally, on the Geek Freak stuff, like, when it's a rumor, be clear that it's a rumor, because if you're not clear, then people will assume you're speaking fact and you have true sources. Hell, if it's just a rumor, then it's fun to talk about. Matter of fact, as we're recording this, currently Adam Driver's Reed Richards. Did you guys know that? Yeah, bullshit. Let's hear the facts.
Oh,
yeah, that's the latest thing going on right now. It's all trending. It's just like, it's so sickening that you guys don't have any sources for that at all.
Right. I'm big into sources, man. And
me too, yeah.
Yeah, if I see if it's from Deadline, it's from Hollywood Reporter, like, I'm on board with that. If you're just coming out of the woodworks with something, get out of here, unless you're like, this is my fun prediction, which is awesome.
Unnamed sources, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay,
right.
Come back to you when you got a named one.
Absolutely. The thing that we did get, though, from the armor and Axe Woes was they really stepped up, and they had a cool arc in this as well.
They did.
Where, we get to see Axe Woes really take almost like a selfless act here and basically send the rest of the Mandalorians who are at the fleet down in the gauntlets. And so the gauntlets are going down, the TIE interceptors are coming up, and he's taking them all on and decides to basically kamikaze the, the light? What is it?
The light cruiser, yeah.
Light cruiser.
Star cruiser.
And dude, and it was awesome. The part where he's going down, shoots the rocket the window, jetpacks out of the window right before it slams down, was such a badass scene too. And he turned out to be like this really badass, cool guy. And
he did.
Axe Woes, man, he's the man. I'm glad he's back in this season.
And what's cool is looking at this, you could see the armor is going to be now arming the new Mandalorian United Army, and you can see that Max Woes is, I keep saying Max, it's like Axe Woes, that's it.
Yeah.
Axe Woes is going to clearly be like the general that's leading the military troop, while Bo-Katan is, leading the people, and like everybody, it's like this is seamless connection of the two tribes coming together. And we saw at the end, we have the banners that show like Bo-Katan number 1 and the other two are side by side. And this is so cool. I'm happy for basically like House Stark in the North right now. This is what the same feelings I have right now. It's like, oh, good, we have an entire good faction we can root for now.
Right.
And in the Ahsoka series coming up, and in the Thrawn movie that's coming up, we know that not only will the Mandalorian be a vital part, but we know that Mandalore itself will be a vital part, and we're going to see this forged army move forward. I can't wait to see what happens with them. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Just this whole battle sequence where they're kind of going in and jetpacking down and they're kind of fighting these forces against the Empire. Like we've kind of seen them unite now, which is really awesome. I want to say positive. I really loved all of that. The one thing, and we were kind of talking about this offline, is like the one thing that's still kind of confusing to me is the armor shift on Bo-Katan from, hey, you walk in both worlds, you don't need to wear a helmet, but all these other Mandalorians do. And I'm still like it doesn't quite sit right for me in a way, because the whole reason why Din was out and no longer a Mandalorian was he took off his helmet.
Right.
But now some quick turn, which we don't really know what her reason is like, hey, these guys don't have to wear helmets, these do, and you're all Mandalorians, and you're all cool with me. That's the only thing where I'm like, but why couldn't you just excuse Din from it too? Because at the end, he's sitting on his plot of land, he's got his son out there playing with frogs, and he has to sit there with his helmet on. It's like, it just doesn't quite sit right to me. What's your take on that?
I get, especially visually, it doesn't seem right, that we're going to have this planet with two different kinds of people on there. And I totally understand that, especially when it's like we're rooting for Din Djarin, who, had to do this whole thing. But I think when Bo-Katan comes back with the like, hey, I saw the mythosaur, and suddenly believes her, I think that's the quick turn. And it would be nice if there was a moment where maybe during, the mythosaur, we could have seen the mythosaur and it would have locked in that whole thing.
Right.
The way I look at it is it's basically just different religions and different variations of how much you believe in the religion. Actually, that's more accurate than it is saying different religions completely. Right. But, we have in our own culture, we have people who wear different things that honor their religion. And the idea that we could get along despite that or because of that is good. So I kind of think of it like that. Right. But visually, it does seem odd that we're going to have half the population wearing helmets and the other half not. And how is that possibly going to work out in the long run? Right. Because how is that not going to create jealousy? Or we saw that scene where they're all eating. It was a meal in honor of the people coming in. And it was like all of them eating while, the armorer's sect is watching them eat because they don't eat that way. They go off in a distant lands and eat or whatever.
Right. Those are going to be some awkward end of the feast parties, where they get to feast after battle. That's going to be a little awkward. They're going to all have to sit in like walled up cubicles or something.
Well, and how do you build a society around that? Like, what if you have intermarrying between the two? One say this one spouse doesn't have a helmet on, the one does have a helmet on. How would that work? And you would assume that would eventually happen when you have a society coming together like that.
You're right. Yeah, I do like what you're saying. Yeah, I do like what you're saying about viewing it as like different sects of the same religion or different versions of the same religion. I'm not sure exactly the right way to say it, but I do like hearing it that way. But yeah, it just, to me, I would have liked a little bit of a nod of, hey, we're not going to be as strict in the rules. Or if the armorer took off her helmet and she was like, this is the way. We're all united now. This is the way. And people would have been like, oh, okay. Like, this is still part of the religion or the creed. And now we're not as strict to it. And we get to unite with our fellow brothers and sisters who may not follow the creed as strictly as we do. Or,
I think if she did that too soon, there would have been people who straight up walked away. Because they lived it like that way. But what if the next time we see them, like we see, say it's in season 4, or let's say it's in season 4, and Mando's like, we have to go back to Mandalore, and he goes back, and the first thing we see is the armorer greet him, and she takes off the helmet. Think of how much that separates, that shows a time jump. Sure. If we see the Mandalore introduce herself and take off the helmet, then we're like, oh, okay, so now we know that Mandalore has progressed. We notice there's like actual farms on the surface of Mandalore.
Right.
Like that would show a progression of time better than just being like, it's been 5 months. I think maybe we'll see that. Maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great way to do it. And you're right. That would be an impactful way to start the season.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super on board. We also you just talked about the plant life that was right underneath the surface. I thought that was just an interesting little tidbit that they, got thrown in there in the episode, I really liked it because
It's
I
really
thought that was
important,
interesting. Yeah, it was really important, but it's like, hey, back to our hideout. Oh, by the way, we have all these indigenous plants that we saved. All right, let's get out of here. It was like, okay, cool. But you're right. Like, I would like to see those plants on the surface. And he says they just need room to grow, right?
Yeah.
And there's that. It just was kind of interesting in the whole timing and in the intensity of the battle. They run away and hide in this beautiful garden and then jump back into battle. It was just interesting for me.
It's definitely a season 3 and season 4 written together moment because it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we're gonna pay this off later on, but just a heads up, Mandalore is not destroyed anymore. Let's keep everybody in mind, and the Mandalorians might be learning a lesson in that you don't go full industrial, because I think that was the key. Like when he said like they need a space to grow, it's because Mandalore was like fully building Beskar as much as possible. Like they were fully just plundering the land as hard as they could to make sure that they were
Right.
this big military force. And these guys are like, hey, heads up, when we do come back, we have to make sure that these have places to grow. And shows that we have to change the way we treat Mandalore if we're going to go
Great
forward.
point.
I a lot of this episode, especially the parts that I have a little bit of gripes with, is the fact that definitely season 3 and season 4 are written together, and you could feel it in this. Even the way it ends, where
Right.
you're like, oh, okay. So when he goes back to go to the what is that called? The New Republic kind of camp, you're like, okay, that's why they introduced it earlier, because they're going to be setting up this thing where he's working with the New Republic now. Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you did. You know.
Yeah, that was cool. I'm always happy to see Captain Teva back, and yeah, that was great. It's kind of cool. Like he's
badass.
kind of Din is now officially working for the good guys, so to speak. But he's like, private contractor. I like how he like sets it up. He's like, I'm 1099. I'm not underneath you guys.
Yeah.
And I
Dave
liked
Filoni's straight up looking straight to camera while he's walking in too. Did you notice that?
yeah. Oh yeah. I
Did
got
you see him with a cowboy hat? And he's just like, as he's walking in, he's just like looking straight at camera as he's walking in. I'm like, Dave Filoni's all happy right now. I'm happy for him. And
Absolutely.
then, Paul Sun Hung Lee sitting there. It's just, I cannot wait for the next season with him in it, man. Ooh, it's going to be good.
Absolutely. And that whole like division, I want to see more from them too. That was super badass. He's an awesome character. Like I want to see him out there protecting, I don't know, or fighting with the Mandalorians against the New Republic, or I guess it would be the First Order kind of rising. But we're getting so many little tidbits here. There was the IG-11 also in the bar that they use. Okay, let's talk about that, because I was so happy that Grogu got this cool suit, and it really works in this episode. We get IG-11 back at the end as the Marshal.
Yes.
I was like, that was a long trip from episode 1. Like, we got to get this droid back to the final payoff in the finale. That was a long road we went down to kind of get there. How did you feel about that?
I was so happy when IG-12 was destroyed. When the Red Guardians took that thing out, because I was like, thank God, I hate Grogu riding around in that thing. To me, it's just so silly. I do like the yes and no's, though. Can he take that button and put it on the little, like, scooter thing? That'd be cool.
Right.
But I was just like, it's so walking around with Grogu in the chest. Like, it feels like that one dude from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I can't remember his name, but Krang. There it is. I got it right off the bat.
Nice. Nice.
But IG-11 back with fully, Taika Waititi's voice in there. That's cool. We'll see him in the future for sure. And, I just thought that was cool. I don't know. That it was weird that it did take an entire season to make that completion, but it was kind of like more so a nod to the first episode. But they kind of nodded heavily in the first episode. So you're like, finally they did at least conclude it. But they were really pushing that in the first episode.
Absolutely. And when you watch the whole season, like if you just binge through it, it makes a ton of sense. But when you're going week to week and you watch episode 1 and then episode 2, and he's like, I need that droid. Psych, I don't need that droid. You're like, what? Now we're back there. Okay, the IG-11. I'm stoked. I love Taika, so like I'm fully on board with it. But I'm like, wow, that was a lot. That was a heavy plant that you guys put in episode 1 for this payoff in the final episode. Like, wow, that's interesting. Interesting move there.
Yeah. Hopefully we see more of him. I know Matt Berry does some of the droid voices too.
Yeah.
And he is a legend.
Absolutely.
So
What we do in the shadows, so good.
Oh my God, it's so.
And it's also Taika as well.
And I know, how crazy is that?
Small world.
Man, boy, never mind. I was just about to go off on a whole vampire kick. Let's not do that. Overall, I think this episode is quite good. I know that there's a lot of ups and downs. It's so funny that like the first reaction I saw, first review, which I was kind of upset that I saw it in the first place, was so negative. And then since then, I've been seeing just positive review after positive review. And I wonder if people are watching it again and in changing their mind, or maybe like, hey, giving it a second shot. I think if I were to watch this again, knowing that the expectations aren't there, I would like it even more. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I just went into it, so I did get to watch it twice, and the
Okay.
second time I watched it was like just enjoy. Like I just enjoyed the action scenes because they are
Okay.
phenomenal. Like you're right, some of the best action scenes in all of the Mandalorian.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, the more I think about, it, the more for me, I'm like, why didn't this pay off, or why wasn't this here?
true.
And we've already kind of beat that over the head, but it's just like it is kind of leaving an interesting feeling in me where I'm like, so much about this episode is great, and so much about it I love, especially the part where now Grogu is actually Mando's son.
I know.
That's so beautiful. But there are certain things with the whole Mandalorian culture and everything that I'm just like, why?
That seems to be the
this,
biggest
that?
sticking point for you.
Yeah, that is. It's just weird. And I guess I just want more clarity on how the Mandalorian creed and all that truly works. We don't have the darksaber anymore. How does that work for Bo-Katan?
That's a great point. And I think in Ahsoka, it's going to be rebuilt right away. I don't think they're going to wait long on that. I think we're going to see that happen pretty quickly. And better yet, I think it's going to be a little bit of a new design. So I think
Yeah.
we're going to get kind of like a... Because the idea of a lightsaber being built without a Jedi, not going to work. But maybe we can get a Grogu-themed lightsaber being built. Because, you know, he's a Mandalorian Jedi. It's the last time that lightsaber was built, was a Mandalorian Jedi. And so I think it'd be Grogu that would make the darksaber again. Then maybe he'll take the crystal out of it and make a new darksaber. That'll be like
That
his
would
size.
be awesome.
Yeah.
It's like I also don't know why what is it? Luke can't give him the other lightsaber as well. Like, you know, like I at some point like Luke learns that there needs to be a little bit of compromise, right? It's like you can't be all light, and you need to like kind of wield the entirety of the force at your disposal, right? It's like he knows this now. I don't know. I would love to see Luke come back and kind of just say, hey, you know, maybe there's some way they interact with him and help him, and then he still gives him the lightsaber, because I think it could work. I don't see the problem there.
You know,
I don't know.
Yeah. So Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni had a huge discussion in the middle of an interview about like, is Luke Skywalker a Jedi? No, he's not, by
Right.
what Yoda said. But then it's like, well, but is what makes a Jedi at that point? You know, because if anybody's
Right.
going to be considered a Jedi, it would definitely be Luke. And so there's that whole thing too of like, he's saying, oh, you have to choose the Jedi path to get Yoda's lightsaber. Well, who the hell are you to say he's not choosing the Jedi path right now?
Right.
Who are you? Like, who's the master training you? Well, actually, no, Yoda is training him still, I guess, from the afterlife. That's the difference right there.
Right.
All kinds of
Yeah.
questions.
So yeah, like we could go on all day about all these little tidbits where they may have leaked it. Like for me, what happened to Dr. Pershing? Is he dead? Is
Oh
he?
yeah, I assume he's dead. Yeah.
That's so sad. Like we didn't get any clarification that he's actually dead.
Well, because they
Like, you
said like
know?
if you turn this at a certain point, his brain scrambled, and she's like cranked it to 11. So
Yeah,
I
it's
assume
just
he's-
it's just a little tidbit there, like these little things where I'm like, I just kind of want the answer. And you're right, like we could totally get it in season 4, and I'm super on board with that.
Yeah.
It just like for me, it feels like there's a few hanging threads in this
For
season,
sure.
and yeah, I just hope that we get the chance to see them kind of tie those up.
Season 1 and 2 did a better job of tying up threads in this one. There's no doubt on that. That's for sure. And then with the Ahsoka series, again, going back to the Jedi thing just for a second, in the commercial or the first trailer for it, they did call her a Jedi. She
Right.
left the Jedi Order. She's not a Jedi at all. So there might be
Exactly.
a new definition of Jedi coming in with Ahsoka. We also know
Oh.
that, yeah, I would assume so, right? Maybe
didn't
maybe
think
her
about
and
it like
Luke
that.
talk and be like, guess what? We're forming the Jedi now, and we're going to be way less strict about it. It's going to be more about the Force than it is going to be about law and order.
Strict rules, yeah, absolutely. Ooh, that's a good way to look at it. Man, ooh, that makes me excited even more for the Ahsoka series, and I'm super excited.
Because Ahsoka, I love Ahsoka. The only reason she's not a Jedi is because they accused her of a crime. She was proven innocent, but she saw that like the entire temple was turned against me. Even
Right.
Anakin was questioning it, and so she's like, "I don't need this. This is crazy. You guys don't have my back. You can't see beyond what's on the books. You can't see into the Force and see it." And
Right.
also another thing that we're probably going to see is some of that in between world thing where it's kind of deep cut, but Rebels has this thing where you can go in between worlds if you're a good enough Jedi, and you could like go back into the past and stuff. and we're probably going to get some of that. So maybe we'll get more from the Rebels, more from her past as a childhood. Ahsoka series is setting up to be something amazing, guys, and that's our next series, by the way, in this story.
Right.
Ahsoka, not Mandalorian 4. So we'll get more there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't wait for that. You got through Rebels in a flash. I don't know how you did it. I'm still kind of like pacing myself through it, but I'm glad I still like it's one of those series where you can go back and watch it, and with everything that it's leading up to in Ahsoka, and there's like certain tie-ins to this season of The Mandalorian, it's like, oh man, it's just nice to just like taste it and just like savor it as we go through. So it's been awesome. But yeah, Ahsoka looks fantastic, and I'm just curious to see, do we get nods to the Mandalorian from this? Like, what was set up in this season? Do we get nods to Ahsoka there? Because, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of tie-ins that could happen, but I wonder if they're going to completely make it its own standalone thing, not too heavily reliant on past
I bet
content.
the Ghost Crew lands on Mandalore at some point. I bet that's what the tie-in will be.
Ooh.
Less so pulling Mandalorian, Din Djarin and Din Grogu in, but maybe just straight up landing on Mandalore, and we're seeing like this new settlement being formed. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be cool. Definitely. Also, I think this will probably be answered in season 4, but I'm wondering, how does this tie into the First Order and them kind of, are they against the First Order? I don't remember them being in that battle.
So we see that the First Order is actually in a whole different sector. And
right. It's like in the undiscovered,
undiscovered
place of space, right?
So we saw during that space meeting with the different generals and admirals talking, that basically Moff Gideon was one of those guys. That sector is now taken over by the good guys. But we still have all the other sectors with all their own armies and all their own plans in every other sector. For example, we know that Thrawn really wanted to work on the Tri-Wing TIE fighters. Right. That's like his big senior project. He has other things he's focused on, but that's what he's spending a lot of money on. But he also is pushing for, like we saw that one guy is like, oh, cloning's your thing, is what Moff Gideon said. He's working on bringing back the Necromancer Project, or Project Necromancer.
Palpatine.
Bringing back
Somehow Palpatine is returned.
Right, so each one of these, so we could see like the Mandalorian fight in the next season, one of these other guys. I noticed that they were pretty big character actors, not big actors, but character actors. So you're like, oh, okay, you're going to be season 4 and 5, you're season 6. Yeah. We could see him going around cleaning up the Empire remnants, I think is what Dave Filoni calls it.
Right, that's what he says to Captain Teva, Yeah.
And then the final one, obviously, is the Thrawn one, because he's the big bad. And we know that the Thrawn segment is bringing in the First Order. Like, the guy who's representing Thrawn is the First Order corner that comes with. Because he is the dad to, I can't remember his name, but the guy from the First Order movies.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that was a massive Easter egg. What is that guy's name? But anyways, that guy's a fantastic actor. You're totally right. It's interesting, right? So the other thing is, like, Din and Grogu now have their own little plot of land in Navarro. Yeah. And what are these challenges? I think he says, like, we got to take him through his journey or challenges, like your ancestors did for you. Yeah. What do you think that, like, encompasses?
I think it's just, hey, you got to get your, merit badge. You got to go out there and see what it's like to prove yourself as a Mandalorian, because it would be very hard for a Mandalorian who never left Mandalore to prove that they're good at fighting, which is a Mandalorian staple. You got to go out there and find the fights, join in it. And bounty hunter is a great way to do it. And I like how that he's going to be like, hey, we're going to be a bounty hunter, but for good, or for the Republic, which we assume is for good.
Yeah. So I did love that. That was great. Yeah. So pretty solid. Now Grogu is an apprentice, so he's kind of leveled up as well. Yeah. I like that they found this loophole in a very like sweet way to make him an apprentice, where it wasn't like he speaks, all of a sudden he can speak like his first words or something.
I was waiting for that too. I thought that was gonna be the case. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was also waiting for him after all that was done to have a helmet or see a helmet getting forged, but it's okay. We see. I mean, how does it work for Ragnar? So we see Ragnar, he's back to the first episode, he's getting ordained, he speaks the creed, and he has to wear the helmet. Does he have to always wear the helmet now? Yes. And that's so interesting, right? I don't know. I can get stuck on this all day.
Remember from the first episode, it reminds me of the IG-11 thing that's kind of got tied up in this episode. Same with him. While they were doing his baptism, whatever, the crocodile thing attacked. So it's cool that they were finishing it now in the actual... And he's the first Mandalorian to be adopted in this way in a very long time. So
That's right. In the way. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I don't know. Thoughts overall on the whole season?
I think it was. We've seen this actually happen in Star Trek before, where I think they kind of tweaked a little bit and told a whole story arc more so than the 101 adventures. And I think next season's going to be a little bit different. I think season 4 is going to be much more like 1 and 2 than season 3 was.
Yeah, I can see that. I agree. Yeah, because looking back at the previous seasons, it was very much like, an episode where it was a standalone adventure, where this had some of that, and it seemed like those episodes where they were standalone adventures, people really didn't like. So it was kind of,
I know, right? That was so weird. But like, if we talk about the Jack Black one, which it could have been that cameo alone was probably the reason why. But I liked that episode as just a standalone adventure, but that got a lot of hate on it.
It did. Yeah, it was interesting. Even the Dr. Pershing thing, I love that episode as well. I thought there was so much like really good lore and drama in that. But yeah, you're right. Even with the Jack Black, I love that episode too, and I've publicly defended it on numerous times, and I thought it was so fun. The Jack Black cameo did not distract me at all. We've had big cameos from people in Star Wars from the start of the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So it didn't bother me. But you're right. I can see them going back to more of like an anthology kind of thing, or like episodic, where each episode is its own story.
Sounds good to me. The Jack Black thing. I mean, the entire Geek Freaks network right now is singing Peaches. So we're all about Jack Black right now. I don't think he could have done wrong on that episode.
Right. Definitely.
Oh man. Well, let us know what you guys think on our Twitter. What you guys think of this episode and the season in particular. Do we know what the next challenge is Ted Lasso? Do we know what the next series coming up is? I don't think we know yet.
Next series, not exactly sure. We have, I don't know. We can figure it out. We can throw it up there to a vote. Titans is out now on HBO, which is I think the final. I think this is the final season, and this is like part 2 to the season. HBO is kind of following that Netflix, where they kind of release all the episodes in like a part 1 and a part 2 kind of thing. So, I don't know. We have that. We have Secret Invasion, and then we have The Flash very soon.
Secret Invasion, I think, is the next big one. Because I'm trying to think of like what's the next big one. I think Secret Invasion is, and then Ahsoka's like I think the end of this year. So we have ways to go for that one. Yeah.
Yep. So probably Secret Invasion next, which I'm pumped about.
Oh, me too. Oh, that looks so good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Aloha.